So I want to do our weekly labor update, you guys. At some point, I want to have like a different aesthetic for this because it's its own segment and it's going to continue to be its own segment. This is the lifeblood of the progressive movement, and I will continue to highlight it. As always, guys, More Perfect Union at More Perfect US. Fantastic work, and they are again the backbone of my coverage today. They're constantly, covering these labor issues and bringing these labor issues to light. So we're going to start with More Perfect Union, talking about, some of you may know Amy's Burritos, the frozen food that you can buy in the grocery store. They portray themselves as somewhat of a progressive company in different ways, but do not treat their workers very well, as some of you may predict. So this is More Perfect Union speaking with employees at Amy's.
Trabajo no me siento segura.
He visto tanta gente lastimándose, tanta gente sufriendo.
Amy's is family owned and operated, and because of that, we're free to do as we wish. And that's something you can only do if you have only yourself to answer to.
Pero hay injusticias, hay malos tratos a veces, discriminación. No queremos que eso nos siga sucediendo, Andy.
It's just our nature that our employees were part of our family.
Ellos nomás quieren dinero y sacar números de comida. No están pensando en nosotros como trabajadores.
Es triste y estresante ver que ahí no tenemos pues un futuro mejor.
Let's keep Amy's going with this magic forever, and hopefully with these values, that's what we can do.
¿Por qué está tan emocionada?
Pues porque hemos pasado muchas cosas ahí.
Como se hacen enchiladas, burritos, lasañas, pizzas, sopas enlatadas, shepherd pie, tamale pie.
Amy's dice que la comida que se hace en Amy's está hecha con amor.
Pero pienso que ese amor nos ha lastimado.
Porque si fuera con amor no hubiera tanto dolor de las personas, de que muy fácil te regañan, de que muy fácil te gritan. Eso no es con amor, el burro no se está haciendo con amor, es con gritos. Siempre va más de lo que debe de ir.
Siempre va a haber más producción, más producción. Si ves que puedes, va a haber más.
En la línea del burro es muy estresante.
Tiene que envolver uno 10 burros por minuto.
Hay veces que la línea va tan rápida que no puedes ni agarrar el burro.
Hubo semanas que me ponían 4 días en el burro. 4 días seguidos, pues es mucho envolver y envolver y envolver. Se calienta el brazo, me empezó a doler aquí y a ratitos ya traía hasta acá.
Yo he escuchado de señoras que han dicho que no duermen de los dolores de sus manos hinchadas de las velocidades tan rápidas.
Tuve una caída, me lastimé mi espalda y me lastimé un pie.
Me lastimé del nervio ciático.
Estaba metiendo una rack al freezer y la rack se me regresó y me golpeó mi mano contra la puerta del freezer. La mano se me hinchó y no la podía mover como por casi unos 3 días.
Como que a ellos no les interesa si uno se lastima. Ok, está lastimada. Pero te siguen poniendo donde te lastimaste.
And then, we have rules like any company about time off, this and that. But when someone has a serious incident, we forget all the rules. We just take care of people. And people know that. And that's what makes Amy's what it is.
Quise hacer mi reporte y me dijeron que me esperara. Dice, espérate, vamos a ver si en unos días te compones.
Tal vez no cambian las cosas, sí vamos a acabar lastimadas todas las días.
Hemos trabajado nosotros diariamente, 6 días a la semana y más de 8 horas y no nos sentimos valorados en cuestión del sueldo.
¿Lo que le pagan a usted, puede usted vivir?
No.
No es suficiente y menos trabajando en Amy's, que un día me voy a lastimar y peor, ya no voy a poder trabajar en otros lugares.
La respuesta de la compañía está siendo para nosotros que no quieren que formemos nuestra unión. Quieren que sigamos como estamos.
Trajeron unos consultantes para desalientarnos a nosotros de formar nuestra unión.
Y nos daban juntas sobre cómo que era la unión, pero en sí nos metían miedo, nos decían que la unión nada más nos iba a quitar el dinero y que no iban a hacer nada para nosotros.
Que ellos van a cerrarle la empresa y que la van a vender y a toda la gente la tienen asustada con eso, con que la empresa se va a vender.
Pero en realidad se ha visto en su bolsillo, pero en el bolsillo de nosotros, en realidad, pues no vemos.
Amy's habla de que es una familia.
And the first value is take care of each other. We treat each other compassionately as if everyone is in the same family.
Ellos dicen, como dicen, que somos familia, deberían de ver por la familia, porque la familia se está agotando, la familia se está enfermando.
Tengo miedo de seguir en la inseguridad. Tengo miedo de que pues más cosas puedan suceder. Y yo por eso estoy aquí hablando, dando la cara por todos, para que así también se animen a hablar y decir la verdad de lo que pasan. Porque si no hablamos, esto va a seguir igual.
So this one was, I saw a comment there from Rob in the chat that he used to eat Amy's products. I'm same boat here, right? Like this one was particularly disappointing to me because I used to buy their products. They cheap, easy, quick, you know what I mean? And they portrayed themselves as an ethical company. And this is, I think, a good indication, a good example rather, of some of the obstacles that we face when we try to be ethical consumers. Another comment there from Snork, 100% agree. There's not many ethical choices, right? I've used the analogy before. If you're looking at a couple dozen items on a shelf, you know, a couple dozen different brands or whatever of a particular item on a shelf, it's probably like 3 or 4 conglomerates that own all of those, and none of them are ethical. So you end up like backed into a corner where you can make very few ethical choices as a consumer. And in this case, I like how More Perfect Union presented that, because they went back and forth between the bullshit, right, that the founders and the executives will spew, and then showing what the workers actually have to say about the treatment, right? So the one guy's like, well, you know, we don't really care about the guidelines. When someone gets hurt, we take care of them. And then they flash to the woman who's like, yeah, no, they wouldn't take care of me. What are you talking about? I think that's a very good way to demonstrate, you know, what kind of bullshit you have to look for and how to see through it. If this company really wanted to treat their workers like a family and wanted that rhetoric to be meaningful, they would not be busting the union. Simple as that. So shame on Amy's, and good on these workers, and I stand in full solidarity with their efforts to unionize as always. Another More Perfect Union here clip for you guys. This is about farm workers in Maine and how they are not actually classified as workers and therefore do not have some of the rights that they should be afforded through labor laws and things like this. So this again is More Perfect Union talking to farmers in Maine.
Shockingly, 2022, farm workers considered essential work, but the people that perform that work are not considered employees under Maine law. Farm workers in Maine are not entitled to the state minimum wage, nor are they entitled to overtime.
I mean, the hardest part I would say is being out in the fields in the sun, bent over all day with the rake. Usually around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to be out in the fields, and then the same routine, 7 days a week. Farm working is 7 days a week. Farm workers don't have a day off unless the weather.
The reality in Maine and in most states in the country is that if farm workers talk to one another and bring those concerns to their employer, they can be fired. And that firing is totally legal because of the legal system that we have in place. That firing is immoral and unjust, but perfectly legal.
So even though the pay is often unfair, you feel like you can't speak up about it, that there's no rights.
And it's really no surprise that workers who come to Maine, traveling 3,000 to 4,000 miles to work here to feed us, they know that if they talk, they will be fired. And they will be fired at a place thousands of miles from their home. They will not only lose their jobs, they will lose their housing in migrant labor camps. They can be put out on the street, and they are, given no money in a state where they might not speak the language. In order for workers' lives to change, for the lives of farm workers to change, they need the same rights that are granted and taken for granted to every other working person in the United States and the state of Maine.
Challenging one's work conditions in that environment is fraught with personal and economic danger. If you lose your job, you lose your home.
What that bill would have done is it would simply allow farm workers to talk to one another about their pay, their working conditions, their housing, and bring those concerns to their employer without the fear of being fired.
Democrats hold majorities in both the Senate and House chamber, and the Blaine House is controlled by a Democrat too. This battle about unionizing, regardless of what industry, there's always somebody with deep pockets, influence, power that's trying to make it hard for people to do that.
I thought it was a little insulting that she said it would take lawyers to read the language in the bill. It's not that hard to read, and farmers that I know are intelligent, educated citizens of Maine.
The governor's veto said, we don't see you, we don't respect you, we don't appreciate you. Thank you for feeding us, but we're not going to give you the same rights that every other worker is entitled to in our country. In the governor's veto message, it's noteworthy and tragic that she didn't talk about farm workers at all. She talked about the small family farm and that this bill was an attack on those family farmers. And that's simply not true. I was extremely saddened and disappointed, but sadly not surprised. In the 1930s, when the National Labor Relations Act was enacted, two groups of people were notably left out: domestic workers and farm workers. And it doesn't take a lot of research into history to realize that those are the occupations that you found on plantations during slavery.
It's how workers have been kept down throughout history, is by dividing them. And so when a class of workers is separated out from the right to collective bargaining, it threatens all of us.
The bill to allow Maine's farm workers to unionize is now dead, but the effort may not be over.
Every time I visited a migrant labor camp, I was able to go home at the end of the night. Those workers stayed there in that state of fear, doing backbreaking work so they could send it home to their families. And I told my clients this, and many of my clients became dear friends. If I ever get the chance, I'm going to try to become an elected official and change these rules.
People depend on farm workers to harvest. They deserve to be treated as other employers and have the right to be able to come together to speak up for those rights.
There are a lot of things that we've gained that it took many times going to the legislature to get. And I don't anticipate us giving up on the right of all workers to form collective action and take collective action in their workplace.
So again, more perfect union doing fantastic work. And this is it's long been kind of known that farmers are often excluded from some of the protections that other workers are afforded. And farmers, obviously, you guys, like, obviously one of the most important industries in the country. If we didn't have the work that farmers were doing on a daily basis, we would very quickly see our food chain collapse. And a lot of this stuff, like, it would happen quicker than you guys think, right? With fresh produce and things like that. That's a pretty quick turnover from when that farmer's pulling it out of the ground and when you're buying it at your grocery store, right? So absolutely horrific decision here from the governor in Maine. I forget, was it Mills, I think was her name? And I hope that she loses her seat over it. And good work from these organizers, and great on that one state rep for getting into politics to fight for farmers. That is such necessary, admirable, respectable, applaudable work. And I stand again in full solidarity with those workers, and hope to see them succeed as in other states as well. I'd like to see this movement kind of pick up for farmers and for food service workers and things. And the last company that I did want to cover, again, more perfect union, you guys, Starbucks. They have engaged in a number of union busting tactics. I'm sure some of you have followed that over 100 applications to unionize at Starbucks locations have been filed across the country. And obviously, the NLRB is there to protect the rights of organizers and ensure that these elections are handled in a free and fair way. And yet the NLRB has been so effectively defanged that it often cannot enforce even the weak and watered down rules that remain on the books. This is an instance where Starbucks has fired a couple of the organizers. One of them was a store manager, and this video dives into her story, which is pretty horrific. She was forced to work sick and then fired for being under investigation. You guys will see the horrific details here brought to us again by More Perfect Union.
So October 14th, we had this meeting that was supposed to be about the fall launch, but it wasn't. And I was like, yeah, I need to record this meeting because I'm gonna have to pull off and support my team. I'm gonna need to refer back to this. I don't wanna miss anything because this is such an important launch. And so I started recording. I did not realize what I was going to record.
We're a huge company. Union would love to get a hold of us. How much money they would make off of us?
The meeting started with my district manager saying, let's talk about what's going on in Buffalo. It kind of all unraveled from there, and they started talking about the union, why the union is bad, why the union doesn't align with Starbucks missions and values, why partners who want to be part of the union aren't true partners to Starbucks. The union was painted in a very negative light, which made me uncomfortable because I have family that's in union. And so I'm sitting there while she's talking about how unions are like the Catholic Church because you have to talk to a priest if you want to talk to God, just like in unions you have to talk to a union representative if you want to talk to anyone. None of this makes sense. None of these things are appropriate to say. And you're saying how all of these partners want more than what they deserve. I was asking to have fewer days. I was asking for what my other options were. I was told I could go on a leave of absence, but those are unpaid. And also you would have to pay your benefits out of your own pocket. And also you couldn't get a second job because then Starbucks wouldn't be required to give you benefits, which obviously wouldn't work for me because I can't be unpaid and paying bills, right? I remember calling my district manager in tears. I was like, I don't have family, I don't have friends. I have no one. What am I supposed to do? I called out on Thursday, and obviously me being sick is a big deal. We have pregnant partners and partners with young kids, but I can't risk it. And so I stayed home and told her I'm supposed to open my store on Friday. I can't. Like, I would not pass health code. If a health inspector came in, they would take my temperature and they would immediately send me home and shut the store down. was met with no response. She wasn't answering my phone calls, wouldn't return my messages, anything. And so I went in to open my store on Friday because what else was I supposed to do? I had a fever of 100.6. I had a sore throat. I was running back and forth to the bathroom. I was sending all of these text messages to my district manager that were like, I'm sick. Here's a picture of the thermometer that I took my temperature with. I couldn't get off the floor. I was so sick and I could not hold it and I could not go to the bathroom because we were so short-staffed. And I couldn't get someone to come in to cover me. And I pooped myself and I couldn't leave because I couldn't get anyone to come in and cover me. This assistant manager calls the district manager and she's like, they're short-staffed, this store is disgusting, it's a disaster. Our district manager said, just close the lobby, turn off mobile orders, it's totally okay. Except I wasn't allowed to do that 10 minutes ago. I wasn't allowed to do that before I pooped my pants at my store in front of my team. Why are we so anti-union? Like, this didn't make sense to me because the union doesn't affect the way that managers do their jobs. It just benefits partners. But I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, like, I'm complicit in this. I know these things, and if I don't say them to someone, I'm just as bad as the people who are saying them. And I shared some clips from the meeting that I had taken on my phone. And she was like, what is this meeting that you were in? And I was like, I don't know. All of the managers are apparently having this meeting right now. I was also the only manager in Arizona who apparently recorded that meeting. I guess it was kind of easy to narrow down that I was a whistleblower, which I didn't think of myself as until they started calling me, asking if I was the whistleblower. It definitely felt like an inquisition. It felt like I was in trouble for doing something that actually aligns with one of Starbucks' missions and values, which is acting with courage and challenging the status quo, which is what I felt like I was doing. I was standing up for my fellow partners, and I was in trouble for it. But they couldn't come out and say that I was in trouble for it, so they had to find some other reason for me to be in trouble. I went home and put in my resignation because this company clearly did not care about me. My district manager called me and was like, hey, I know you put in your notice. Are you still gonna work these final 2 weeks? And I said, yes, absolutely. And then she called me at like 9 o'clock and told me, I talked to corporate and our policy is that if there's an open investigation against you and you put in your notice, we are to terminate you immediately. So effective 11/14, you have been separated from Starbucks. And I said, what open investigation? And she said, I can't talk to you about that because it happened in my district, so you're gonna have to call corporate and talk to them.
So when I learned that she was terminated, I was pissed off. I feel rightfully so. And we didn't know why. I mean, the partners that were around us and the shift team believed that it was because of her cancer. It really brought a lot of our shift supervisors together, and we started talking about like an action plan. Like, what can we do? What can we, think of that would actually help us? And the one thing that actually helped us was reaching out to Buffalo, because we felt like having a support network is what we really needed. And we were talking about it. We were discussing it. After shift meetings, we were talking about unionizing. We even before Harrison had gotten sick, but it was something that really pushed us to actually reach out and, start the initiative as soon as that we found out, okay, she's terminated. We need to do something. Otherwise, corporate's going to run us over.
So, brazenly illegal stuff from Starbucks there, you guys. Like, blatant. And again, the NLRB has just been so effectively defanged that companies feel emboldened to get away with these offenses. And, you know, I feel absolutely awful for that manager. I mean, to go through cancer and bronchitis and have this horrifically embarrassing incident in your own store in front of your own, you know, your coworkers, your partners, and then be treated that way by the company. What a fucking disgrace. What an absolute disgrace from a company that tries to portray themselves as progressive. Oh, you know, just what do you even fucking say to that? Just shameful. And we have another story here of them firing an organizer and trying to claim that it is not for the reason that they obviously did fire her for. This is again more Perfect Union, you guys, perfectunion.us. Leaked audio of firing shows Starbucks lied about union leader. Starbucks tried to discredit fired barista Cassie Fleischer in a letter to thousands of employees. A new recording undercuts the company's claims. This is by Jordan Zacharin. Starbucks sent an extraordinary note to employees nationwide on Thursday, urging them not to believe a former coworker, Cassie Fleischer, who said she'd been fired last week after she helped organize the company's first U.S. union. What Starbucks didn't know was that Fleischer had recorded her own firing. The audio obtained by More Perfect Union backs up Fleischer's public claims about what happened and shows that what Starbucks management told its workers is false. Fleischer worked at Starbucks for nearly 5 years and at the Elmwood location in Buffalo, New York since July of 2020. She helped Elmwood become the first unionized location in company history and sits on the union's bargaining committee. Last Friday, Fleischer shared on Facebook that she'd been let go. Quote, "Little did I know yesterday was my last shift at Starbucks. I am no longer being scheduled, nor am I allowed to pick up any shifts, and as of today, I am effectively terminated from the company." Days later, Starbucks tried to discredit Fleischer in a letter to thousands of employees sent by the company's U.S. operations chief, Denise Nelson. Quote, "Earlier this week, a Buffalo partner claimed she was fired. She was not," the note read. Nelson claimed that 13 employees at the store had simultaneously asked to work fewer hours, which made it hard on the manager, but that local leaders were continuing to have conversations with Fleischer and other employees. But a recording of Fleischer's conversation with her manager completely undercuts the company's version of events. In the recording, Fleischer's manager tells her repeatedly that she's being terminated as a Starbucks employee and will have to reapply for a job if she wants to work for the company in the future. What happens going forward, Fleischer asks. Her manager tells her she's been fully removed from the schedule and termed out effective in 3 weeks. "I should be terming it as of today, really," she added. "You're not coming back." Starbucks had long accommodated workers' schedule shifts and the realities of part-time work. More Perfect Union reported last week that the policy appears to have suddenly shifted in the Buffalo locations. The manager's explanation seems to confirm that changes have been very recently made. She also acknowledges that Fleischer's situation was triggered by a cutback in hours made available to her. Quote, "I'm cutting back on the hours because it's still too slow to house all the hours that we were previously," the manager told Fleischer, "and I should have done it sooner than later, so I was behind the 8 ball a little bit myself. There's your shift and a couple other people that really, with the hours, I don't have quite the availability." She reiterates later, "I can't even give you all those hours to begin with that you want." Fleischer had typically worked between 37 and 39 hours per week until the run-up to the union election. Management then flooded the store with new hires in a union-busting attempt and cut her hours to between 29 and 31 per week. The loss of pay forced her to search for a second job, and in early February, she informed her manager that she'd obtained one. She asked to reduce her hours to 15 per week while offering to provide extra availability when necessary. On February 8th, her manager informed Fleischer that her request was being denied because it didn't meet the needs of business and that she would have to either consider taking a leave of absence or pursuing termination. In their final conversation last Friday, Fleischer reiterated that she was happy to pick up additional shifts and to work longer on weekends, but the manager said she didn't want to give people 8-hour shifts on weekends because she'd be required to give them more break time. That they just say this stuff out loud, you guys. It's so fucking unbelievable. Namely, a 30-minute lunch and 1 or 2 10-minute breaks over the course of the 8-hour shift. That's, by the way, dictated by law. That's so a lot of food companies will do this. Starbucks is notorious for it. They'll schedule you for a shift that falls 15 minutes short of the hours necessary to be required to give a break, right? "I want to," quote, "make them the 5.5-hour shifts where we're not running all those crazy breaks all the time," the manager said. And carries on there, but you guys get the point here, right? The leaked audio completely disproves Starbucks' claims. They say they did not terminate this person. They obviously did terminate this person, and they even admitted to some extent why. So classic union busting stuff. Again, blatantly illegal stuff, but Starbucks gets to get away with it because the NLRB has been defanged and our politicians cater only to business owners and have no time or care for the working class or for working people. So, unsurprising, but I really want to hammer home, and I know I've covered Starbucks a ton. It's because of how they fucking portray themselves like they are worker friendly. I am from the Seattle area, which is the where Starbucks is founded and where their headquarters is located. I've driven by the headquarters a number of times. It's just south of the stadiums in Seattle with the big building and the big Starbucks logo and all that shit. And they try to portray themselves as though they are, a good company, the good company. And, this proves that they're not. They engage in union busting like any other. In fact, in some ways, even worse than other companies have done in the past. So the classic union busting tactic to flood the store with new hires so that you cut everybody's hours and try to force some of the organizers out. If you can keep turnover going fast enough, then there's seldom ever enough workers who are there long term to unionize and organize, right? So that's part of what these companies rely on is this high turnover rate. Amazon is very similar. They have like over 100% turnover per year. It's like historic. It's crazy, and that creates an environment where people are there for too short a period of time to really engage in robust organizing, right? So again, you guys, shame on Starbucks and huge ups to More Perfect Union for bringing this to the forefront. I really do think that they are responsible for creating this catalyst, or at least they are one of a seldom few that are responsible for creating this catalyst and bringing this to light. I think there are a lot of people in this country who did not quite realize the extent to which companies engage in union busting and the extent to which it is essentially allowed. And I'm glad to see people educating themselves on this. I'm glad to see this wave seeing some success, and I'm glad to see the horrific behavior from Starbucks being revealed here and used as a way to educate people on how union busting happens. So that is the labor update for the week, guys. At More Perfect US, please go follow their work. They really are fantastic. And we'll be back next week with more updates on the labor push.